Hello, audible? Is it audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir. You can continue.
Okay. Good morning, all the delegates for day two, our FD program, IDT 2020. Today, we have one of the well-known speaker for our pharmacology department and Mr. C.R. Patil. Anyway, I know him since from 2003. We worked together in KLE Pharmacy around 2 years, so 3 to 5. And he is very good proactive personality, respect to experimental pharmacology, and really I am very much impressed about his the way of perform experiments in pharmacology, and he is mastering for the recording BP by invasive BP. And I know that once visited me rarely, I visited 2 times in his college, and he has made very good development in the respect to the practical aspect and upgraded various things in his lab. And apart from that, I know we enjoy means during our PhD time, and he is very good proactive personality, and most of the time encourage during our PhD time. He used to stay with during night time, means we used to start the work during night time, and he used to come and stay along with us, and really encourage person. Now with this brief, now I request our Srihari Assistant Professor for Pharmacology to introduce today's speaker. Over to Srihari.
Yes. Yes, sir. Good morning. Good morning to all delegates and warm greetings from G. Pullareddy College of Pharmacy. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Chandragowda Raosab Patil. Sir has completed his B.Pharm from Shivaji University, Kolhapur in 1996, M.Pharmacy from Gujarat University in 1998, and PhD from Shivaji University, Kolhapur in 2007. Sir has more than 20 years of teaching and research experience. He is currently working as a professor and head of the department pharmacology at R.C. Patel Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, Shirpur, Maharashtra. Sir has received several prestigious awards for his contribution in the field of pharmaceutical sciences. Innovator Teacher Award by MHRD, Government of India, New Delhi 2017. Young Scientist Award by CCRH Ayush, New Delhi 2017. OD Gulati Award by Indian Pharmacological Society in 2015. Career Award for Young Teachers by All India Council of Technical Education, New Delhi 2009. Best Poster Award by 7th World Congress on Alternative to Animal Use in Life Sciences, Rome, Italy. Young Scientist Award by 6th World Congress on Alternative to Animal Use in Life Sciences, Tokyo, Japan in 2007. Sir has been invited as resource person in more than 30 international, national and international conferences. Sir has published more than 51 research articles in national and international journals, as well as he is also have filed a patent in the year 2008. He also co-authored a book entitled Rheumatoid Arthritis and Herbal Drugs, Current Status and Future Prospects. With his great interest in the field of pharmacology, Sir was instrumental in developing an online software, Xcology Pro, published by Read Elsewhere Private Limited, India, on preclinical experiments in pharmacology at undergraduate levels. The curricula of medical and paramedical courses now include Xcology Pro as a complete replacement for animal-based experiments. Sir has guided more than 45 PG and 2 PhD scholars, and currently 5 research scholars are working under him. It gives me very we from on behalf of management, principal, staff, and students, G. Pullareddy College of Pharmacy heartily welcome you, sir, for this EFDP program IDD 2020, and I once again thank you for accepting our invitation. Thank you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Professor Srihari. At the outset, I am thankful to Principal Sir of G. Pullareddy College of Pharmacy, my friend Videsh Mantal, all other organizing committee members of this particular FDP for giving me this opportunity to share my experiences of working in alternative medicines, particularly when you consider research in alternative medicines. There are so many problems associated with it. And when I worked on one extramural research project sponsored by Central Council for Research in Homeopathy, at that time, I came across so many issues related to alternative medicines. Okay? And it was the most problematic project because it was in the field of homeopathy. Okay? So it has given me some insights regarding how we should go about when we are searching for or discovering some medicine from alternative medicines for treating today's diseases. Okay, friends, just now Professor Srihari told that I have been working for 20 years now in academics, and academic research was a part of this particular work that I have done. And I would like to ask you a simple question: why we go for alternative medicines? Why we look for Ayurvedic medicines, or say homeopathic medicines, or some yoga related treatments and all? This is particularly what I feel is this kind of preference for alternative medicines comes because of our economic conditions. Okay, this is a bold statement, but still I am doing this statement that our economic conditions are responsible for us to shift from allopathic medicines to alternative medicines in some cases. When we consider academic research, again, you asked me why we go for alternative medicines in academic research, particularly pharmacological evaluations. If we are considering, we generally look for a plant or some formulation in Ayurvedic or some other kind of alternative medicine therapy, and then we carry out simple evaluation of it in some disease model. This is what we have been doing across decades. Okay, not only in my case, for two last decades I have been doing only this thing: select some medication, select some herb, some phytoconstituent from alternative medicines, and evaluate it in some experimental model. It can be in vitro, in vivo, or combination of these two, and then prove that this particular medicine is effective. And at the end of that particular project, we say that, okay, as it is mentioned in alternative medicines, say in Ayurvedic text, this particular plant or this particular formulation shows this particular activity in the disease model. This is where our research ends. Okay, and nothing happens after that. Happily, we publish a couple of papers related to such kind of research, and then we forget, then we shift to another medicine. Okay? Many times we are not having even preference to one kind of method of treatment. If suppose Ayurvedic medicine comes in front of us, okay, we take it up and do research on it. If a homeopathic medicine comes in front of us, we do that. If someone gives us a Unani formulation, okay, we will take that Unani formulation, or Siddha medicine. All these things we are doing in academic research. Again, I feel the reason is our economic conditions, because this kind of research is having a particular formula. We have to take the medicine, extract it, study in animals or in vitro conditions, report your results, and forget about it. This is what is happening in alternative medicines for decades together now. Okay. So this is the background on which I want to talk with you about real drug discovery and development in alternative medicines. When we say drug discovery and development related to allopathic medicines, we are having a very well-defined program for drug discovery and development as far as allopathic medicines are concerned. Okay? We are having very well-defined preclinical research protocols, whole program for preclinical research, toxicity testing, safety pharmacology, first human dose, clinical trials, 4 phases. Then the drug will be coming in market, and that will be considered as real discovery and development of the drug. And that doesn't stop there. Even when the medicine enters into the field, when it is being sold in the market, strict control and observation is there about the adverse event which can happen because of that new drug. Okay? So such very well defined, very well planned protocol, very well planned methodology is there for discovery and development of allopathic medicines. What we are doing in alternative medicines, that is the biggest question. Okay, let me take you to the problem of COVID-19. All of us are going through this particular problematic phase now, and from side of allopathic medicines, many drugs are being tested to treat this viral disease and the conditions associated with it. All of us are aware about hydroxychloroquine. So this medicine is now a well-known medicine, which was once an old medicine used for some infectious disease, but now people have discussed about this to a very great extent in last 3-4 months. Even the president of America, he himself declared on some day that, okay, he is taking hydroxychloroquine to keep himself away from COVID-19. Later on, what happened is people started to find out what are real targets for this particular hydroxychloroquine. They commented that this particular medicine is preventing binding of COVID-19 virus with its targets in the lung. They correlated it with ACE2 receptors. They said that, okay, because of this particular mechanism, hydroxychloroquine will be a preventive medicine and it will be keeping patients protected from COVID-19 infection. This was something which people said before 2 or 3 months ago. Okay, what is today's situation? Today's situation is hydroxychloroquine has been put aside, and people are now claiming that some antiviral medicine is necessary to be used. So someone came ahead with remdesivir, favipiravir. Again, when someone came up with these medicines as a treatment of COVID, CDSCO, government authorities again started saying that no, this is very high costed medicine, and they made a statement that even its efficacy has not been properly proved for COVID-19. Okay, means even in the field of allopathic medicines there is enough confusion. People started with hydroxychloroquine, then they used combination of hydroxychloroquine azithromycin, then they went for remdesivir. Meanwhile, someone tested famotidine in treatment of COVID-19. After that, people said that no, this cytokine storm which is happening in the person's body, that is responsible for the death of person. So we should have something that suppresses the cytokine storm in the person's body. So people came up with tocilizumab, which is interleukin C antibody. Means so many different things have been tested, right? And even today we accept that no specific treatment is still being defined at any level for treatment of COVID-19, right? Means even in allopathic medicines, there are uncertainties, there are trials and errors, there are different claims about the efficacy which are reputed in future, and some new claims are made. Okay. Still, we believe in these medicines, we consume these medicines. Okay. I'm sure that whenever all the people who are attending this particular talk, if they felt a fever or cold or some running nose like symptoms, they sure shifted to combination of azithromycin and hydroxychloroquine in many cases. Okay, let's have a look at Ayurvedic medicines now. Okay. In India, a medicine called as Coronil was brought into market by Patanjali herbal medicines as a treatment of COVID-19. Okay. It was a herbomineral formulation, and that formulation contained 3 important herbs along with some calcium supplements and other supplements. Which are these 3 herbs? They are Ocimum sanctum, Tinospora caudifolia, Withania somnifera. Okay. Now I am weighing these 2 kind of treatments as far as COVID-19 is concerned. Okay. Can we say that Withania somnifera is not as good as hydroxychloroquine? Sure, everyone will say, no, how you can compare Withania somnifera with hydroxychloroquine? But if suppose I tell you that recently a study has been published where it has been clearly shown in silico study that Withania somnifera also acts at the same molecular target at which hydroxychloroquine is acting. There are components of Withania somnifera which interact with ACE2 receptor. There is a proof, in silico proof, that components of Withania somnifera interact with ACE2 receptor, and they can also inhibit binding of COVID-19 virus to its targets in the lungs. About Tinospora caudifolia, it is well-known immunomodulatory medicine. Ocimum sanctum has its activity as antiviral substances. So now question comes, when we have to compare allopathic medicine with herbal medicines or Ayurvedic medicines, why we are having this bias now? Always allopathic medicines are weighed more as far as evidences are concerned or testing is concerned. Compared to that, Ayurvedic, homeopathic medicines, for them there is some kind of lack of evidences, or people do not get rapidly convinced about their efficacy. Even Today, this is happening. Okay, for thousands of years, we have been using these particular medicines, but still, we cannot give a full-fledged proof, a foolproof evidence that these medicines can act. Okay, and then, unfortunately, such medicines go out of market. Legal actions are taken against them. Same is the case with Arsenicum album. Okay, this is a homeopathic medicine. I am sure that at least 50% of the people who are listening to this particular talk consumed those 4 sugar pills in which few drops of Arsenicum album were put by the physicians. Many government bodies, many state governments accepted this and distributed this Arsenicum album as a preventive measure for COVID-19. Right? All of us are having this particular experience that when time comes, we immediately shift to alternative medicines. But when someone asks us what is the proof for the activity, again we lose our belief or faith in these medicines and we shift back to allopathic medicine. This is what is happening repeatedly. Okay. Now question comes, what we should do as researchers or as pharmacologists to check whether really these medicines are effective or not. Okay. Can we put enough money? Can we conduct controlled clinical trials? Can we really regulate everything related to these medicines which are collected from the nature? Can we have a systematic pharmacology for all of them? This is the big question worth asking. And that is the reason why research in alternative medicines is many times misdirected kind of research. See, all of us are working on alternative medicines. Take all pharmacy institutions, all medical institutions. When it comes to research activity, as far as Indian scenario is concerned, we are selecting a couple of herbal medicines. At the most, we can go for phytoconstituents. We take them, we buy them, and we test them in some animal model. Sometimes we carry out a small clinical trial, but then we forget about it. Nothing happens after that. And then such evidences are not enough to support the use of such medicines in some conditions. Okay. Now question comes, how we should go ahead. See the situation, how bad is the situation of alternative medicines? Okay. Initially, Ministry of Ayush, they published some guidelines for people of India where they suggested some Ayurvedic medicines, Unani medicines, Siddha medicines, and homeopathic medicines in the treatment of or in the prevention of COVID-19 infections. Okay. Somewhere in the month of January and February, these particular pamphlets were circulated by Ministry of Ayush, where they suggested that, okay, you start taking these particular medicines and they may protect you from corona infection. But by the time 1st April came, government of India had to publish another directive to everyone. They gave a direct instruction to Ayush Ministry that, see what has been written here. Accordingly, in exercise of the powers of central government conferred under Section 33P of the Drug and Cosmetic Act, it is hereby directed to all concerned Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani and Homeopathy regulatory authorities in the state, union territories to stop and prevent publicity and advertisement of Ayush related claims for COVID-19 treatment in print, TV and electronic media, and take necessary actions against the persons or agencies involved in contravening the relevant legal provisions and aforesaid guidelines of NDMA. Okay. And this is issued with approval of Secretary of Ayush, Government of India. Why this step was taken? Initially, Ayush published some guidelines or some directions for the people to take some medicines which are according to Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani and homeopathic medicine systems. They claimed that according to the understanding of these modes of treatments, these alternative modes of treatments, these treatments will be preventing or protecting the people from COVID-19 infection. Within 2 or 3 months, again the same Ayush had to call back these particular directives, and they said that legal actions will be taken against someone if someone claims that an Ayurvedic medicine acts against COVID-19 or a homeopathic medicine acts against COVID-19. This situation is happening because we are having COVID-19 in front of us. Instead of that, if suppose another disease was there, a non-contagious disease was there, for which no strict regulations and all are looked after, probably such kind of directives would have not come. But there also the situation could have been similar, that these alternative medicines are not giving any direct proof about their efficacy or ability to curb some diseases. Okay, so this is the situation in which we have to think about discovery and development of alternative medicines. Hope my stand is clear now, that even at government level this much confusion is there. Initially we say something, within a couple of months we call back that particular directive, say that if you say that this is effective, legal action will be taken against you. Okay, so to this extent there is confusion about research in alternative medicines or claims about efficacy of alternative medicines. Friends, even in the presence of such a huge confusion, if you see the market size of complementary alternative medicines, it is very huge. According to one survey, it has been claimed that market for alternative medicines by year 2026, means within 5 years after now, the total global market for alternative medicines will be around 14 lakh crore rupees. Okay, this is a very huge figure, which is equal to the annual budget of one state, one large state of India. Okay, to that extent, the market size of alternative medicines will be huge. Okay. Now question comes, if such huge is the market, is there any necessity for real research or not? Yes, friends, there is a necessity for systematic research, development, and discoveries in alternative medicines. And this is the agenda for my present talk. Actually, these all are unresolved issues. Okay? These issues start from defining what is alternative medicines. Okay? It also includes correlation between modern theories and theories of diseases according to alternative medicines. There are issues related to standardization of these medicines, rationalization of their use as per ancient text and present references. And the biggest issue is how to do new discoveries in alternative medicines. Okay, so I'm going to take you through this particular confusion for next 10 to 15 minutes regarding alternative medicines. Okay, let me ask you a simple question. See, I want to discover one alternative medicine for treatment of COVID-19. This is my target, and I want to start with it. The first question that comes to my mind is, what is alternative medicine? To what I will be looking for the source of my medicines, for my test compounds. Okay? So let's try to see what is alternative medicine first. Let me ask you this question. What is meant by mainstream medicine and conventional medicine? Can we say that Ayurveda is mainstream medicine in India? Can we say it is conventional medicine in India? Confusing? No, we are quite clear that it is the conventional medicine of India, right? Now, next question is Ayurveda an alternative medicine or a complementary medicine? Again, a big question, because we never look at these terms from the legal view, or we do not look for the actual definitions of these terms. Okay, so if I want to find out an alternative medicine for any treatment, first I should know what is alternative. First I should know what is complementary. Okay, first I should know what is traditional or conventional medicine system. Okay, now for each of these alternative medicines which we are considering, about which we are having an idea in our mind, the question comes whether homeopathic medicine, will we consider them as alternative medicines, or will consider them as traditional medicines of India? This is the question worth answering. Another important thing is Have you ever come across Sowa Rigpa practice? This is also part of Ayush medicinal systems. If you visit website of Ayush, there you will find a mention regarding this. So along with Siddha, that yes is used for Sowa Rigpa also, about which we are totally unaware. Okay. So my first problem is, if I want to find out a medicine for COVID-19 from alternative medicines, I must know what is alternative medicine. I must know what is complementary medicine. I must know what is promotive medicine. Okay. Then only I will be able to start my search, otherwise not, isn't it? So the biggest question starts here. If I want to search for or discover and develop an alternative medicine for a treatment, question starts from here. What is alternative? Okay. So now the question is, what is mean by alternative medicine? What is mean by complementary medicine? What is mean by integrative medicine? What are traditional medicines? What is promotive medicine? Okay. Because from all the sides, when Ayush medicines were attacked for claiming their efficacy in even preventing the infection of COVID-19, government had to go on back foot. Ayush ministry had to go on back foot. And then one day, Ayush minister proclaimed, Ayush minister declared that whatever medicines we are giving as a treatment or as a prevention for COVID-19, they are promotive medicines. So this new word he brought in. Okay? Instead of calling that alternative, complementary, integrative, or traditional, what the minister said is they are promotive medicines. Again, the question comes, what are promotive medicines? Is there any definition for them? Okay, so if I want to develop a medicine or discover a medicine for COVID-19, can I go for promotive medicines as the area from where I will be getting new medicines? Worth thinking, right? So we have to initially clarify our understanding about what are these alternative medicines, what are these traditional, complementary, and all kind of medicines. Are there any real definitions for these kind of medicines? Let's try to see what people have done across the world. There have been many high-level committees which have tried to define these terms now. Okay, I'm giving you a couple of examples related to this. Why we are defining these words? Because we want to discover and develop some medicines which come under this particular flagship, and then they are to be developed for new kind of diseases, and that is what we are considering as drug discovery and development. Okay? So according to National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine, which is a body under National Institute of Health, these medicines have been defined as non-mainstream practice used together with conventional medicine. Then they should be called as complementary medicine. Means if we are using an Ayurvedic medicine along with an allopathic medicine, we'll call it as a complementary medicine. This is what NIH says. But if suppose instead of using a conventional medicine, if you use another medicine, then it will be considered as alternative medicine. Okay, why we should look at these small things? Because even these definitions are going to direct our efforts towards discovering new drugs. Okay, so if suppose you are using allopathy, Ayurveda together, there Ayurveda will become a complementary medicine. But in place of allopathy, if you use Ayurveda, it will become alternative medicine. Okay. Cochrane Collaboration is another organization which has tried to define this word, CAM, complementary alternative medicine. And it has said that this is a broad domain of healing resources that encompasses all health systems, modalities, practices, and their accompanying theories and beliefs other than those intrinsic to the politically dominant health system, okay, of a particular society or a culture in a given historical time. See, this is the definition which has been given for CAM and has been published in scientific literature also, that they are considering politically dominant system as a mainstream system, and whatever is there apart from that, theories, beliefs, anything, that they will be considering as CAM along with their practices. Okay, so if I want to search for a medicine from complementary and alternative medicines, I will have to bear with all these things, and in them I will have to search for a new medicine. There is British Medical Association, which have gone ahead to say that if suppose you want to say complementary and alternative medicine, then these are the medicines which are not widely used by the conventional healthcare professionals, and the skills of which are not taught as a part of undergraduate curriculum of the conventional medical or paramedical healthcare, then they should be considered as CAM. Okay. Now, if we follow this particular definition, then Ayurveda and homeopathy are conventional medicines for India, isn't it? Because there is systematic 4.5 years training, followed by that there is MD, followed by that there is PhD, internship. All these things are done by these Ayurvedic practitioners as well as homeopathic practitioners. So, according to this particular definition, even Ayurveda and homeopathy are mainstream medicines. We cannot call them as alternative medicines because curriculum is available there, isn't it? Okay, so when so much confusion is there about the definition, the ultimate organization that we look at is World Health Organization. And recently we have witnessed, as far as this corona is concerned, that even at WHO there are some confusions regarding scientific aspects, and we all enjoyed this kind of posts in WhatsApp where scientific matters were discussed, and then there were some claims regarding non-symptomatic corona patients. There are claims about spread, there are claims about the contagiousness of this disease. Everywhere there were problems, everywhere there was confusion, which is being sorted out. But for a thing as simple as traditional and complementary alternative medicine, there should not be any confusion, isn't it? And this is what we are trying to look at in the World Health Organization given definitions for traditional alternative medicines. So what they have said, they have divided this CAM, complementary alternative medicines, into two things. One is traditional medicine, another is complementary and alternative medicine. See, everywhere, wherever you are trying to define this particular word, there is some amount of confusion involved in each definition. So if I want to go for alternative medicine in the treatment of or discover alternative medicines, I have to be very clear what is real definition of it. Okay. So according to WHO, now traditional medicine is something that is used as a indigenous medicine, some form of indigenous medicine. And there they have mentioned that okay, Indian Ayurveda or Chinese medicines or Arabic Unani medicines, they are all traditional to that particular society. But when it comes to complementary alternative medicines, they include medication-based practices involving the use of herbal medicines, animal parts, minerals, procedure based on primarily without the use of medication, as in the case of acupuncture, manual practices, spiritual therapies, etc. Okay, so all of them will be considered in complementary alternative medicines. Okay, and in one of the definitions which are not shown here, it has been clearly mentioned that whether those beliefs related to those therapies are scientifically proved or not, still they will be considered as a part of traditional medicine, complementary medicine, alternative medicine. So this is what WHO said in the year 2002 when it published guidelines for alternative medicines, complementary alternative medicines. After a few years, in 2014, another guideline was published by WHO where it has now clearly bifurcated the two terms, traditional medicine and complementary medicine. And for complementary medicine, it has used alternative as a word. Okay. So from all these slides, what I wanted to tell you is, if you want to start with discovery and development of alternative medicines, you have to be sure what you are talking about. Are you talking about complementary medicines, which are to be used along with allopathic medicines? Are you talking about alternative medicines, which will be separately used in the treatment of some disease? Are you talking about traditional medicines? What actually you are talking about? Unless and until we clarify this particular point, we will not be able to understand what we are going to discover, isn't it? So understanding of these terms is very important. And I'm sure that I have confused you enough regarding the meaning of these words, right? By giving all these definitions, I'm sure that I have confused you very efficiently. Now, the question comes, if suppose there is such a problem, even in defining this particular term, how we are going to go for real discoveries? Okay, in India at least, has it been clearly sorted out what is alternative and complementary medicine? No, even here there is a problem. Okay. As I remember, in 1992, when I did my 12th, at that time there was one course of electro-homeopathy which was available as a 4 years course, electro-homeopathy. And it was given in different medical colleges, so-called medical colleges, which had mushroomed at that time. And then someone went to court, and the court and the government of India had to issue an order regarding what is real alternative medicine in India, or what are real traditional medicines which are there in India. Okay, and there they clearly said that in India there are many different kind of alternative medicines which are being used. Okay, there is something like hypnotherapy, aromatherapy, color therapy, pranic healing, gems and stones, music therapy. So many things are there. Reiki, magnetotherapy. So many things are there. But these are not even traditional or even alternative medicines according to Government of India. Okay, what Government of India has clearly said is, out of this, Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, homeopathy, yoga, and naturopathy, only these are the systems which should be considered as alternative medicines, nothing else. Okay, and that too, government has said that practice of these things will be allowed only if the practitioner is trained as per the properly given syllabus. Then only we will be considering this to be a efficient and licensed doctor for giving treatment of that particular pathy. Okay, means this thing was sorted out somewhere in 2003, not very long back. Right, before that, all these things we could have considered as alternative medicines. Urine therapy, auto urine therapy, all these things are known to us. Okay, and we are having many anecdotal success stories for this kind of medicines. But now, if you want to search for or discover and develop alternative medicines, you will have to look at these 5 or 6 various systems of medicines for which legal training, legal licensing is there. Okay. All right. So this was clarified even in right to information, where people clearly said that, okay, this is what we have to consider when we are talking about alternative medicine. So friends, I'm sorry that I've lengthened this particular discussion regarding what is CAB, because if I want to tell you how to discover and develop drugs, it was compulsory for me to tell you what is really CAB. Okay, complementary alternative means what? I have to tell you. That was the reason why I stretched the discussion a little more, and I kept in front of you the kind of confusion which is there and the kind of clarification which government has given. Okay, so if you want to discover and develop medicines in the field of alternative medicine, you have to go for Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, homeopathy, yoga, naturopathy. Only these medical systems are considered to be valid systems. Before some time I told you Sovarikpa is there in Ayush, but nothing has been said about that. Okay, so this kind of confusion is always going to be there in defining these medicines. We cannot easily sort out what is real alternative medicine. Okay, in presence of such confusion, how we are going to do research about this particular pathy? That is the biggest question. Okay, let's try to see what is our situation in this case. This is a survey carried out by World Health Organization in 2012. In year 2012, World Health Organization wanted to know the status of alternative medicines in the world. So it carried out a survey of 133 countries. Okay, and different questions were asked to the government authorities and practitioners of all these countries, and their people said that lack of research data is the biggest problem related to alternative medicines. Okay, and this is the truth. It has been properly presented by WHO now. Okay, let's take a case of Ayurvedic medicines. I'm giving you an example about the problems that we may face if we try to discover and develop Ayurvedic medicines. Okay. In Ayurveda, whenever someone says Ayurveda, we are all aware now. We are all aware that this is a system that considers Vata, Pitta, and Kapha as three different parts of our health, entire health, and balance of them is considered to be a healthy condition. Okay. And if suppose there is imbalance in them, in any of these things, then it will be affecting the prakriti of that person, and the person will suffer from some kind of illness. And then Ayurveda will say that it will be using medicines which brings back the balance between these three doshas in our body, and the disease is cured. Okay? So Ayurveda will not be treating diseases, it will be making or bringing back the equilibrium between these three doshas, and the disease will disappear. Okay? That's what is the simple understanding about Ayurveda. No doubt there are multiple theories, there is very deep knowledge, insightful observations, systematic documentation of everything that is there in Ayurveda. But if you want to discover and develop a drug, what are the issues that we have to think? Okay, whenever we say discover and develop a drug, why we are discovering and developing something? It is for marketing, right? The ultimate purpose is to bring something that can cure the disease and then market that particular thing. And in today's era of global trade, we also wish that entire global population should accept our product based on alternative medicines. Obviously, there is a necessity that we should have systematic proof of everything that we are saying. Okay. Fortunately, Government of India has taken up many steps now to rationalize and to correlate this ancient medicinal methods of treatment with the new knowledge regarding genetics, regarding the pathology, regarding the theories of diseases. Okay. Recently, this paper has been published, and this was published from the project that was funded by Government of India under the Ayurvedic Biology Initiative. What these researchers have done, they have found out that the correlates of Ayurveda Prakriti means this dosha related or balance related issues in the people, they are having genome wide correlates, means whatever was there in our ancient understanding, ancient text related to these three doshas and three dosha dependent Prakriti can be correlated very clearly and efficiently with the genome of the person. And these authors, this article is freely available. Okay. This is open source article which every one of us can access. In this article, clear-cut correlation has been shown that people who are having Vata Prakriti or Pitta Prakriti or Kapha Prakriti are having particular type of single nucleotide polymorphisms in them. Okay. Means this can be very clearly shown that as Ayurveda has divided the population into three different Prakritis, we can have genetic correlates for such kind of classification. Okay. So we can understand the beauty of knowledge which is there in Ayurvedic text. Okay. It is standing true even in presence of molecular biology related correlates. Okay. That's very good thing. We can say that this is a big success for us, that our ancient science is being accepted through such kind of research activities. Okay. Now, once this has been clarified that, okay, there are genome-wide changes or genome-wide variations in the people of different Prakriti, how we are going to utilize this knowledge henceforth. That is the thing which we should consider after this. Let me take another publication, which is again a recent publication published in year 2017. This is also an outcome of the project sponsored under Ayurvedic biology concept or Ayurvedic biology initiative by the government. What these people have done, they have taken Amalki Rasayan, which is a Ayurvedic medicine, and they have proved its efficacy in a cardiovascular condition. They have tested this particular rasayana in patient or in animals in which hypertrophy has been induced. So this is a preclinical trial in which they have shown that this particular medicine is very effective in preventing cardiac damage, loss of contractile function, which is associated with hypertrophy. So this is the great piece of research again, where Ayurvedic medicine has been proved. Let's accept this. Now question comes, dependent upon this data, that Amalaki Rasayan prevents loss of cardiac function in cardiac hypertrophy. Can I plan a clinical trial? The question is this. Okay, I'm having Ayurvedic text in which Amalki Rasayan has been mentioned. I'm having scientific proof that Amalki Rasayan very nicely protects the animal's heart from hypertrophy induced alterations. Can I go for clinical trial? Is it necessary that I should go for clinical trial? Unfortunately, even we do not know whether we should go for clinical trial or not. Okay. So this is the confusion related to alternative medicines. In the article which I just now showed you, the effective dose of this particular rasayana is 500 milligram per kg per day for few weeks. So pharmacologists will sure understand that this is a comparatively very large dose. We generally do not go up to this high dose when we have to test something, right? But this article has published the efficacy of Amalaki Rasayana at 500 mg per kg per day dose in rats. If I want to prove the efficacy of this drug, I will have to feed the patient with at least 5 grams of the drug as a dose. Okay? And that too I'll have to continue for weeks together. All right, let's accept all these things. Let's say that, okay, whatever is the dose, we'll apply all the principles, all the methods, all the protocols of drug discovery. And let's go ahead. Let's go ahead for clinical trial of this particular formulation, Amalaki Rasayan. Now question comes, is it really needed? If suppose you want to sell Amalaki Rasayan in India for some indication, do you need clinical trial for that? Friends, unfortunately, this question is having negative answer. You do not need to clinically test Amalaki Rasayana through clinical trials. Why I'm saying that? There is a gazette, Indian Gazette, published in year 2010, where it has been said that for Ayurvedic medicines, if suppose you are using the same formulation as mentioned in the Ayurvedic text, I am taking you to that slide now. This is the part of that gazette which says that, okay, if suppose you are having Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani medicine, which is having ingredients as per the Ayurvedic text, which is having indications as per the text, then you do not need any safety pharmacology studies for that. Do you need any evidences? If suppose there is published proof, published literature on that particular substance or that particular medicine, you do not need any permission for that. Okay, you can directly bring that particular drug in the market. You do not need proof of efficacy. If you are using the medicine as it is prescribed in the text for the indication which is prescribed, then you do not require all these things. Okay. All right. If suppose I am using Ayurvedic medicine, which is there in the text, but my indication is new. Even in that case, you do not require safety pharmacology. If published literature is there, you can go ahead with that particular literature, and you do not need to give the proof of efficacy. Okay. If there is published literature, you do not need the proof of efficacy. Okay. So like this, government itself has given a directive that, okay, if there is a sufficient proof in Ayurvedic text, do not go for such kind of proving. It is not necessary. You directly start using that medicine as a mainstream medicine. Now, I'm showing you one publication in which these authors have gone for testing of Amalaki, and they have just surveyed, they have just reviewed what all uses of Amalaki Rasayana are there in Indian literature. Okay. They are given references from Charak Samhita, they are given references from Sushruta Samhita, they are given references from Ashtanga Hridaya, they are given references from Harita Samhita, and so on. Okay. And almost 210 different uses, 210 different indications for Amalaki have been given in this particular article along with references. Okay. Obviously, they will be containing all or majority of the conditions that may happen to us, right? Just an example I am showing you. See, Amalaki Swaras. You can use it for inflammatory swelling. Okay. Now, same Amalaki Rasayan you can use in the treatment. Amalaki Swaras you can use in the treatment of, okay, they have said for improving your complexion they can use it. It has been mentioned in Ayurvedic text. Amalaki Rasayan you can use for neurological disorders. Amalaki Swaras you can use for urinary incontinence. Okay. Amalaki Swaras you can use for epilepsy. You can use it for diabetes. You can use it for fever. You can use it for tuberculosis. You can use it for leprosy. Okay. All these things have been mentioned in Ayurvedic text. Now question comes, if government is asking for literature, published literature will be having it. If indications are there, so many indications are there for each medicine, then we will not be needing to go for proving that efficacy again. That's what government is saying. In such scenario, what will be the importance of my research work? If I go on proving the efficacy of some medicines, what will be use of my actual research? Will it be considered as drug discovery and development? Or it is something that is I'm doing for just academic purpose, publication purpose? Okay, so just now in this particular National Gazette, Government Gazette, it has been shared that there should be published literature for supporting the efficacy of that particular medicine, Ayurvedic medicine. I hope I am not confusing you, but what this particular guideline says, that if suppose there is published literature on Ayurvedic medicines, you need not to go for proving its efficacy or safety. Let's have a look at this particular data. Okay, scientific data, scientific literature. We all know how confusing the literature is when it comes to herbal medicines, when it comes to alternative medicines. There is one funny example that I have come across about a medicine called as Pureria tuberosa. Okay, this Pureria tuberosa is available as tubers, and it is used in Ayurveda for treatment of sexual dysfunction. See, there are formulations in Ayurveda which contain Pureria tuberosa as a treatment of sexual dysfunction. Okay, so this is published in literature. Again, I go for another article where the same medicine has been given as anti-fertility agent. Such a vast controversy is there. The medicine that Ayurveda is giving for sexual dysfunction is being used as anti-fertility medicine, or is being proved as an anti-fertility medicine in new science. How can I say that this literature supports something and this literature doesn't support something? Now, again the same question. If suppose someone comes up with a Ayurvedic formulation for treating sexual dysfunction, but it is inducing anti-fertility effect, means it is actually suppressing sexual abilities of the experimental animals. How we are going to judge this kind of literature? Or in other words, let me say that someone may come up with Ayurvedic medicine using this particular reference, where it is being prescribed for sexual dysfunction, and start selling his products. But if there is a rival company, it will show this particular reference and it will say that no, this medicine cannot be sold because it is having toxic effect on the person's body. Okay, so such confusion is there in the literature. We have to rethink how we are going to respond to this kind of guidelines then. This is a big issue. So if you really want to do some research in Ayurveda, you'll have to come up with even systematic literature for the medicines to say what is real, what is fake, what is effective, what is not effective. That is the beginning where you can start research in Ayurveda. Okay. Such many examples you can give. There are many formulations in which a plant has been mentioned, but that plant, its biological name is wrongly given. This is common experience for many Ayurvedic medicines. Okay. Name of biological names means if the species slight or the strain slightly varies, there is sufficient change in chemical composition, and there is problem related to its identity. But majority or many Ayurvedic formulations you can find out where such identity related problems are there. There also we can have some contribution from our side. Second thing is, in literature, if you see, for decades together, we are publishing the same thing. This I have collected from Google search. In year 1960 to 65, people have studied Gymnema sylvestri for anti-diabetic effects. Come to 2015 to 19, same medicine, same plant, same activities being published again and again and again. You will come across at least 50 different articles for anti-diabetic activity of Gymnema sylvestri. What is use of this thing then? Are we really doing some research or drug discovery development? Or are we repeatedly publishing the same thing in different kind of journals, which is not having any significance? We have to decide this. Then only we will be able to contribute to alternative medicines in real sense. So big question is how to select the medicine for preclinical testing. We have to decide it dependent upon all these factors. Whether we should go for clinical trial or not, again we should very critically decide by going through or looking at the medicine through all these perspectives. Then only we'll be able to decide all these things. Otherwise, we will be ending up wasting our resources, wasting our time. Okay. Then there are many problematic things in case of such alternative medicines. Best example is shelf life of Ayurvedic medicines. I'll be sharing this presentation with everyone. So you can visit this particular Gazette of Government of India where shelf life of some Ayurvedic medicines has been given as 10 years. Okay. 10 years shelf life is something that is not practical in any case. Okay. So we all easily understand this. Even this is the area where we can contribute and check whether the formulation really remains the same for 10 years or not. Okay. Now this is the last case that I am taking up in my presentation, that is homeopathy. Okay, so this is the prototype that has the most complicated theory, that is most complicated method of formulating, that is most problematic way of testing the drugs and most problematic resources for the drugs also. Okay. Suppose you want to discover and develop some homeopathic medicine, there will be big issues because these people are relying on their observed patient histories or case studies. Okay. Again, I'm coming to corona infection. We all know by this time that suffocation, breathing difficulty, and accumulation of mucus are the major symptoms of this particular corona severe condition, right? Now I started to look into homeopathic medicines for the medicine that is to be discovered, that's to be developed for treatment of corona or some condition. In the same spirit as people tried hydroxychloroquine. It is not antiviral, we know, but it prevents some stage of the disease. It is not antiviral, we know, but it suppresses cytokine storm. It is not antiviral, we know, but it blocks binding of virus, or it exerts some protease kind of activity and kills the virus, or does not allow it to multiply in our body inside the cell. In the same spirit, I am looking at homeopathic medicines as alternative medicine to treat my patients, or to discover a medicine to treat my patients. So in this homeopathic, we can say, compendium of cases, I came across one medicine called Blatta orientalis. This medicine is used for asthma, for bronchitis, for phthisis, okay, this tuberculosis-like condition. Now, it has been clearly mentioned in the standard reference that this medicine has saved cases in which suffocation was threatened by great accumulation of mucus. So dependent upon this particular symptom, I thought that Blatta orientalis can be tested in patients who are suffering from breathlessness, breathing difficulties in corona. Okay. For me, according to my method of treatment, homeopathic treatment, this is good evidence. No doubt the doctor will be taking whole case. He will be going for different kind of observations. Then he will decide the medicine. But for a researcher, he can say that, okay, this is worth testing in patients, right? All right. Whether the word suffocation is there in corona or not. For that, I found out some reference and said that yes, suffocation is a symptom in the patients of corona. So I can have a basis for testing my homeopathic medicine in them. Then I look for pharmacopoeial details about this particular medicine. Okay, I came to know that okay, there is an international company which is preparing this particular formulation. It is available in the market. For that, there are homeopathic standards given by Homeopathic Pharmacopoeia Laboratory. And then, dependent upon this whole background, I will say that this is my standard medicine. I want to test it in the patients who are suffering from corona-related suffocation and accumulation of mucus in their chest. Is it the right stand? This is the big question worth answering. Okay, I'll request all of you to visit the monograph of Blatta orientalis in Homeopathic Pharmacopoeia. It will be very interesting to go through this particular medicine because this medicine is created from an insect. Okay, this medicine has come from a cockroach, right? You can imagine how much problematic this research can go. Okay, this medicine, which is present in homeopathy as a treatment of asthma, suffocation related conditions, is an extract of Indian cockroach. Okay, and it is prepared by trituration of live insect in alcohol. Now you can understand what kind of issues, what kind of challenges you are having in discovering and developing a alternative medicine. Okay, This is available in market. People are taking it. Right? But if I want to check it in corona, who will allow me to do this? Is it worth or not? This is the big question worth asking, and this is going to direct our research for alternative medicine. That is the reason why I have taken this particular example. Okay, friend, this is something about which we are thinking if we want to sell our drug in India. Okay, if we want to sell it globally, we'll have to give the proof that those regulatory bodies of the country give us. Okay, and the most strict regulatory organization we know is US FDA. Okay. US FDA has given strict guidelines to industry regarding complementary alternative medicines. They have said that anything which is being brought in the country under the heading of complementary alternative therapies will not be considered as an alternative. It will not be spared from the strict regulations which are there for the drugs. Okay? That's what this organization has said, that if suppose we want to sell our medicine, say Ayurvedic medicine, in USA for treatment of something, they say that it will be strictly regulated according to the Public Health Safety Act. And even the CAM products will not be exempted from any regulations which are there for the drugs or the medications. Now, there is an alternative method to sell the drugs in such countries then, where people are saying that, okay, instead of selling it as a drug or complementary alternative medicine, you sell it as a food product. Okay, you sell it as a juice of some vegetables and say that it is a food product. What this guideline of US FDA has said is, if suppose you want to sell something as a food, you sell it as a food. For that there will be different regulation. But as soon as you say that this particular food cures this particular disease, even that food product will be considered as a medicine, and strict regulations according to medical or according to drug regulations will be implemented for that particular product. Okay? That is the reason why in United States, this acupuncture needles are regulated as strictly as we regulate the medicinal devices. Okay. So similarly, all medicines will be regulated in the same way unless and until there is proper proof for it. Okay. So this is the challenge in front of us. Right? Now question comes, what will we do with all this ancient knowledge that has been accumulated across the centuries, across thousands of years? We got the knowledge. For this, I'll be giving you one simple example of how Chinese people went about their medications and how they innovated something from their traditional knowledge. Okay. This example is about a Nobel Prize winner, Yu Tu. We all know she's related to discovery of artemisinin, and in the 1970s, that decade, Chinese military had taken up this particular project. Okay, and Chinese military had taken up this particular project because they wanted to compete with US armed forces in discovery of anti-malarial drugs. See the level of competition which is there. This competition was not between the drug selling companies. This competition was there between two military forces, United States military force, Chinese military force, and this project was taken up at that level. Okay, so many organizations throughout China were working on this secret project. They studied thousands of herbs came up with the details, tested their medicines, and then ultimately they discovered the medicine artemisinin. And really, this particular story is worth reading. Okay, the way they looked at their medicines, the way they persevered, they continued their work is really worth admiration. So that's what we will have to learn from these people. This is the passage which I have taken from UU2's Nobel lecture. Okay, see what she has said. Within the time of 3 months, I gathered over 2,000 herbal, animal, and mineral prescriptions for internal, external use by reviewing traditional Chinese medical literature and folk recipes. See the dedication. Within 3 months, she had gathered data on 2,000 herbal medicines. Then, not only she did that, she sorted out that whole knowledge. From this 2,000, she selected only a few medicines which were worth testing in rats. Okay, and that whole study was performed in rats later on. So she came up with 640 formulations, which were again tested. And then from that, the most effective herb or herbal decoction was found out, which later on developed as a artemisinin. Okay, and this project was given a secret name of Project 523. So you can understand the way in which we have to really explore our own science. In India, unless and until we take efforts at this particular level, we'll not be able to utilize our knowledge properly. Okay. So with this particular example, I would like to share with you what UU2 has given as a conclusion of her Nobel talk. Before that, let me share with you this young girl who is working with her mentor is UU2. She was working on this particular project at that time at such an young age. At that age, she has discovered that she has extracted the material from 2,000 different reports from the literature. And this is the best thing. What I have shown here at the top is her notebook. How she has systematically recorded the laboratory data regarding efficacy of these plants. How many of the rats died? How many of the rats survived after administration of a particular drug? That very systematically she has reported. Okay, so the same is needed now by us when we are thinking about development of our own medicines. Okay, so what she has said is there should be commitment to clearly define our goal and assure success in the drug discovery. So this is what is needed now. We should know what is our goal, which is difficult for us to understand easily. We should have knowledge as a prologue in the discovery. So whatever Ayurvedic or homeopathic or Unani Siddharth knowledge is there, we should have it as a prologue. That is our strength. Okay. Information collating and accurate deciphering of the literature is again important. That is the foundation for the success. That's what UU2 has said. Then, through literature, we have to get inspirations for finding out idea, and that will lead us to success. That is also important. Okay. Persistent in the efforts, that is also needed. And most important is we should have collaborative teamwork for discovering something using our ancient knowledge. So all these steps we'll have to consider when we are going for alternative medicine related discoveries. Okay. So friends, no doubt in the given time of 1 hour or 1 hour and 30 minutes which I have taken now, it is not possible to discuss all the issues, but I feel that I have given you some glimpses about the kind of issues which may arise if you are thinking about discoveries and development of alternative medicines. There are very huge challenges in this field, but systematic approach and proper efforts are necessary so that we can explore and exploit and utilize the wealth of knowledge that has been accumulated in India across centuries. Okay. So with this, I want to tell you that there cannot be something like alternative medicine. A medicine will be treated as a medicine always. Okay. So we cannot say alternative thanks to someone. Thanks should be original. Okay. Similarly, a medicine should be an original medicine. That cannot be an alternative medicine. So with this particular spirit, we should start looking at our own medicine system. Then we'll be able to succeed surely. Okay. So this is what I wanted to share with you. No doubt there will be so many other things related to standardization, related to identification, related to proving of the efficacy. All those things are going to be there. Each issue needs to be separately sorted, separately thought about. Okay. So this is the beginning of thinking process. That's what I feel. And I hope I have stimulated your thought process for discovering and developing medicines from alternative pathies. Okay. Thanks a lot. I'm stopping the sharing now. And the session can be kept open for discussions. Hello.
Veeresh sir, you can go on. Over to Veeresh sir.
Sir, lera? Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello, sir.
Veeresh sir, start change.
Sir, lera? Principal sir? Okay. Thank you, Patil sir, for your brief means various aspects of alternative medicine and what are difficulties in the drug discovery process in the alternative drug research, and given nice information about for young researchers how to start alternative medicine. And what? Yeah. Now I request our sir.
Yeah. Yes.
Hello, sir.
Hello, Veeresh.
Yeah. Start, sir. Start.
Namaste, sir.
Sir, very much thankful to you, Chandragowda sir. This is a very right topic at right time, where
Thank
the
you, sir.
importance of our traditional medicine. This is the time that we have to catch up with our indigenous systems of medicine, the Ayurveda, Siddha, homeopathy,
Right, sir.
and now the discovery part should be aimed at 2 points, sir. One is that we have to go for the identification of the chemical constituents, including their quantitation. Another thing is that we have to prove and demonstrate the actions of these traditional medicines on the lines of the modern pharmacological theories and
Right.
on this pharmacological equipment. So if we can prove some of these actions on these lines, I think we will be able to convince the allopathic doctors, and also the patients will get confidence, and then the systems will get prominence and reputation, and the system will become still more popular and it can be practiced.
Yes, sir. Right.
And for that, I think the discovery part should be aimed at these levels.
Right, sir. Yeah.
It is not possible for all the herbal, the Ayurvedic, Siddha, Homeo medicines to prove on these lines, but important, a few.
Yeah. Right, sir.
And the mechanism of actions we cannot exactly correlate as to that of the allopathic drugs, because the allopathic drugs, we are proving the mechanism of action at one particular receptor level, whereas if it comes to the our medicinal products, they may act at different targets simultaneously, but
Right.
ultimately we get a summary of effects.
Yeah, but in that case, we'll have to go for biomarkers kind of things. Biomarkers of efficacy we'll have to find out. And then
Yes.
overall picture biomarker changes we'll have to take out. But that kind of proof would be
Another
necessary.
point is that we have to try to reduce the quantum dose of these medicines. People are little bit apathetic to take so much quantity, such a big pill, or such an amount of powders or these things. I think we can try to reduce that by enriching the chemical constants.
Right. That's possible. Yeah.
So I think in these two ways, I think if we can improve, these medicinal products will do wonderful benefits to the patients. And we should also, people like you and some others should sit with the government people and also the CCRA people, that
Right.
for some of the ailments or for some of the diseases, particularly the diseases which are of the GIT, liver, and the rheumatoid arthritis, few others which are not of imminent danger to the life. For these kind of diseases, our traditional systems of medicine will work wonderfully,
Right.
and they will try to remove the root cause of the ailment.
Right.
And this has to be convinced by the people, and we have to come out with a comprehensive medical system where for which of the diseases they should be given allopathic, and for which the same doctor can suggest the traditional medicine system. Instead of calling traditional Ayurveda, Siddha, homeopathy.
Yeah, such efforts are being taken up now.
Kind of awareness we have to create, and for this I think we have to work with the government also, and the research councils in Ayurveda, Siddha, homeopathy also. They should come out with some of these treatment protocols.
Right, sir. Right.
Even in allopathic hospitals also, if for some of these diseases, if the treatment protocol is included, this Ayurveda, Siddha, homeopathy, I think this will get a very good benefit to the patients, and the treatment cost also will drastically come out.
Yeah, now it is happening. Means many government hospitals, they're having Ayurvedic physicians also along with allopathic physician.
So yes.
Patients are directed to these Ayurvedic physicians also for some ailments. That's happening now.
Yeah, in future, if the central government makes a direction, at least in one hospital, there should be one Ayurvedic physician. I think in that case, most of the treatment outcomes will be better for the patients with minimum cost.
Right, sir. Right. Yeah.
And research should be aimed on those two lines.
True, sir. Yeah. True, sir.
So your talk is very wonderful, and you have come out with very good examples where the Ayurvedic products are so effective, on par with the allopathic products. But still, a kind of awareness has to be spread in some of the states. Whereas, of course, the Ayurveda and it is very popular in some of the northern states, but not in some southern states.
Yeah.
So that we have to do a kind of comprehensive efforts, so that the treatment protocols, Ayurveda treatment, Ayurveda, homeopathy, Siddha treatment protocols shall be included in the allopathic hospitals.
Right.
So
that's happening to some extent now. That's happening to some extent.
Yeah. In some of the hospitals it is happening, but on their own. But the government can also come out with some kind of directions.
Right, sir. Right.
So it is very wonderful, sir. Your talk is very apt at this present time.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you. Thanks for your appreciation.
Okay, sir. Very nice.
Thank you.
Viresh, sir, any questions are there? You can put forth.
Yes, sir. Now I move on to Lingesh, sir, for question answer session. Lingesh, sir.
Hello, sir. A very good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
It was a very informative session. Usually, every session.
Okay. I think it is connected, I think. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
There is some network issue.
Okay,
yeah,
sir.
yeah.
Okay.
No problem.
Thank you, Patil sir. Most of the feedback they given, very nice session and informative session. Any questions, sir?
Are there any questions?
Naresh sir?
Yes, sir. Some questions are there. I am posting onto the comment box.
Yeah.
Okay, I think in comments there is nothing visible. Like you can read those questions one by one.
Yeah. Naresh sir. Hello, Naresh sir?
Yes, sir.
So most of the participants they given very good session and more informative session and the
Sir, a
questions.
question is displayed on your screen. Please.
And what qualifications are required for drug development? Okay. So I think this question, what qualifications are required for drug development? This question I think is directing particularly to discovery of alternative medicine. If suppose you want to work on alternative medicine, what should be your qualification? That's what this person, Jack Sparrow, wants to ask, I think. Okay. So see, when you are working on alternative medicines, let's take example of Ayurveda. If I want to work on Ayurvedic medicine, one thing I have to do is I have to take help from Ayurvedic, means person who is trained in Ayurveda. Because I have to go for a BAMS, MD doctor. Best person to get associated with will be a person who is doing PhD in Ayurveda. Okay. So if you have anything in your mind to work on Ayurveda, no doubt you are going to be a pharmacologist or a pharmaceutical person who wants to contribute to this particular science. You can be a pharmaceutical chemistry related person also who wants to do some in silico kind of research. So all of them are necessary. Okay, all of them can contribute in particular way. But when you are working on Ayurvedic medicine, take someone from Ayurvedic medicine as your collaborator. If you are working on homeopathic medicine, you need a homeopath to get collaboration or get directions from such people, because only dependent upon our paradigm of drug discovery, we cannot deal with these medicines. So this is a group task where people from both sides, people from new drug discovery paradigm training and people from alternative medicine training, both of them should come together and work together. Okay? Then only this kind of problems can be solved. The qualification, along with your drug capacity, you need someone who is well versed and trained in alternative medicinal systems. Then there is second question: is in silico analysis enough to predict efficacy of a particular phytochemical to avoid resource wastage in clinical trials? See, this question is again a hypothetical question, because in silico testing is not actual testing. In silico testing is a prediction. Okay. In silico testing is a prediction for which you have to give a lab-based and a clinical testing-based proof. In silico testing gives us direction. It does not tell us about the real efficacy of drug. In silico testing has not become that powerful yet. In future it may become, but at present, if you are just predicting the activity using in silico packages, that is not sufficient. Dependent upon that, you cannot take anything to clinical trial. Another issue is, if you are when you are saying in silico analysis, there you are talking about separated chemical. here we have to understand that separated chemical is not Ayurvedic medicine. Separated chemical is a new drug entity to be tested according to new drug discovery paradigm. You cannot call it as Ayurvedic medicine. So such kind of predictions will support the claim of Ayurveda, but they cannot help you to take the medicine to clinical trial directly. It's not possible. I think this is particularly related to my reference related to Vidania somnifera, right? Vidania somnifera, I told that it interacts with ACE2 inhibitors. Yes, its components interact with ACE2 inhibitor, but that was not the basis for bringing it in clinical trial. Basis for bringing it in clinical trial was Ayurvedic knowledge available for that particular medicine. Okay. So my answer to this particular question is no, you cannot use in silico predictions for bringing something into clinical trial directly. Okay, next question is, can we isolate any peptide from insects for corona or some other disease? Just now I have told you something regarding Blatta orientalis. Okay, but this is a kind of research which will take years together. You will have to have some basis for isolation of particular peptides. You'll have to tell why that particular peptide you are using, what will be the mechanism of action of that peptide, how it is correlating with corona, and then you can go for that. See, isolating peptide from insects and using them from corona, if you consider Blatta orientalis example of homeopathy, in homeopathy they are using it. They are using extract of Indian cockroach in treatment of asthmatic symptoms. If severe asthma symptom is there, they use it. So from this example, if you can take something, and if this particular idea can work for other conditions, we cannot say about that, but worth trying. You'll have to give all systematic justification for why you are going for that particular insect protein. You cannot just depend on, see now this Blatta orientalis, if you see the discovery of Blatta orientalis in homeopathy, it has come from a chance observation that few people who were consuming tea in which some parts of this Blatta orientalis were also a part of the decoction were suffering less from asthma symptoms. That was the beginning for use of Blatta orientalis in homeopathy. We cannot say that such principle or such justification we can give in modern drug discovery. That will not be accepted at all. Okay, but for around a couple of centuries it has been in use. Today we can say that okay, there is sufficient evidence for it and we can go for that, but not in case of modern drug discovery. Okay. Again, Jack Sparrow has asked, while discovering and developing or researching the drug, money that cost will be ours or the government will help with us. Okay, so in alternative medicine, this is the biggest issue. Already the medicines have been proved. You have to just find out the way to market them. Okay, if you want to do discovery, you will have to market them and earn your own money. Government is supporting for this kind of research. Many extramural research projects are there. Ayurvedic biology program is supporting this kind of efforts. Okay, it is there from government side also. I hope I have answered these queries.
Sir, Principal Sir would like to answer one question regarding
Please,
the qualification.
Please. Yeah, please.
Sir, with your permission, can I add a little more explanation to those people?
Please. Yeah, please, sir. Please.
I think Jan Sparrow is very much interested in our medicine system. I think he is asking for qualifications. I think qualifications are not so important as far as the drug discovery is concerned. Drug discovery is a multidisciplinary program wherein people from different disciplines join, biologists, chemists, allopathic doctors, and Ayurvedic physicians. And even people from science also can take up the research. People from a background of botany, zoology, chemistry, they can also contribute for the drug development, whether allopathy or Ayurveda, I think. And one more person has asked about the in silico analysis to avoid the wastage of the resources. Is it, sir?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think as you said is correct that the in silico analysis is perfect for a single chemical entity. When it is made as a single chemical entity, it is a single molecule that becomes an allopathic molecule. It
Right.
cannot be an Ayurvedic product or
Yeah.
any other product. So I think what I suggested to that person is in silico models have to be developed for the Ayurvedic products. Whereas the Ayurvedic products will contain a mixture of chemicals, and by looking at the existing Ayurvedic products and their mechanism of action, if some in silico models are developed, I think those models can be used for predicting the actions of the more and more new other Ayurvedic products, and that
Right.
is how the research can be done, and the in silico model is only to predict the actions. It is not an alternative for preclinical or clinical trials.
Right, sir. Right.
The preclinical and clinical trials are mandatory requirements for the legal submissions to get the market authorization for the products.
Right,
So
sir.
in silico models are only prediction, and to avoid the number of repeated experiments for hundreds of molecules.
Right, sir.
So
Sir,
the
in
hundreds and thousands of molecules can be tried on in silico, and from that a few tens of molecules will become potential, and those molecules will be tested in wet labs.
Right, sir. Sir, in Ayurveda also, a new approach called as systems biology approach is coming up now.
Sir. Yeah. System
So-
biology approach, right?
Yeah, there even recently few articles have been published,
Sir,
particularly by Dr. Patwardhan. He has published about proving of triple achurna, considering
Triphalachurna, right?
considering systems biology.
Systems biology approach,
He
right?
has used different softwares to correlate all the things related to triple achurna, its constituents, along with Ayurvedic principles, and from that he has prepared a model
Okay.
that this particular drug will be effective.
Oh, I think such kind of models we can use for more and more number of products.
That is their systems biology approaches are coming up now. They are there,
Okay,
and
sir. That is a good development.
yeah, that is freely available now. Means all
Okay,
the
okay.
participants can go to that article also.
Okay, sir. But is it an open source software, or has to be purchased, sir?
I think it is open source also. Means many new open source softwares are coming, but we have to understand the basis on which they have developed that particular model. That is important.
Sir, if you have no objection, can you give us the details of that software later, and
Okay, so
we
I'll
will
share with
try
you.
to have it.
I'll share with you. Sure, I'll share with you.
Okay, sir. I think Veeresh sir will take those details from you.
Right.
Try. We have a pharmacognosy department is there in our college, and
Yeah,
so we are interested in taking up these kind of research.
Right, sir. Right. Can be done.
Okay. Yeah, yes.
Is there any other question, or we are going to stop here?
Yeah, 1 second.
There are no more questions, sir. Yes, sir, you can proceed.
Yeah, okay, sir. Lingesh sir, are there? Lingesh? Naresh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, I request Lingesh sir to conclude this.
Hello, sir. A very good afternoon to you. I feel privileged to give you a thank you note. Sir, your session was very informative, and it was having more insights into the alternative medicine or complementary or traditional medicine. So I feel there were many sessions on this topic. There were many speakers who spoke on this topic, but they have tried to answer the questions like how far it is superior or how far we can prove this complementary and alternative medicine. But I thought you have given us insights on how to do research. So what are the limitations that we are having in this complementary and alternative systems of medicine. So you started with what are the questions and what is the need of drug discovery and development in complementary and alternative medicine, and you have given examples by taking the current scenario of COVID-19. So what are the ambiguities or what are the confusions we are having both with allopathic medicine, like whatever the examples you have given of hydroxychloroquine, which was initially considered as a treatment for COVID-19, but now no one is taking care about it. So because I know personally people who have taken hydroxychloroquine as a preventive measure. So you have tried to explain us the same confusions also exist even in allopathic system of medicine, and then you have explained us what are the agenda that we need to address. So if you are taking from definitions to correlating the traditional medicine with the modern theories of diseases and the rationalization of their usage, like as you have given an example of Amalki Rasayana, its usage in hypertrophy, the cardiac hypertrophy. So which might not be its original usage, but so which was proved to be useful even in cardiac hypertrophy. So you have not only touched these sites, but you have raised the questions regarding the guidelines that are available in the complementary and alternative systems of medicine, and what are the limitations we are having, like uh, the need for lack of efficacy studies, which are not required for drug approval under Ayush, so which need to be answered. So I feel the example that you have given of homeopathic medicine of Blatta orientalis, so which is actually derived from Indian cockroach. So really, it is very astonishing to hear all these examples. So I feel all the participants they have got a well understanding of how the drug discovery research has to be done in complementary and alternative medicine. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Viresh, sir, also.
Yeah.
Okay, it was a nice experience to interacting with all of you. I'm going to share this presentation. So if you are having email IDs of all your participants, you can share it with them also. All right.
Thank you, Patil sir. Once again, on behalf of organizing committee and management of principal sir, I'm very much thankful for your valuable lecture.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Patil sir. Thank you, Viresh sir. This is the end of the today's session. I thank all the participants for your interest in listening and watching this webinars on the YouTube channel. And a small note of participants, for assessment cum feedback form, please visit college website. It will be activated after 1 hour of the end of the session. Assessment cum feedback link will be activated, active for 24 hours only. And if you have more updates, if you want more updates, please subscribe to GPRCP Hyderabad YouTube channel for regular notifications. And coming to the tomorrow session, that is day 3 of EFDP IDD Insight into the Drug Discovery and Development 2020. We have an eminent speaker, Dr. M. Mallika, founder and instructor of Mass Training Academy Hyderabad, will deliver a talk on advances in natural product drug discovery. Please join us tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. In our YouTube live channel. Thank you everyone.